generate if AI, you know, if AI is actually now then generating like game engine type content, after you set up your initial sort of rigging, it's able to somehow do like the equivalent of those keyframing ideas, in the video generation that's happening now. If you got really, a small team could actually produce a pretty sophisticated gamified experience like this that extended into that kind of interactive learning of how to build my greens for good, or about the protein content of plants in different regions or different use cases or applications or promising locales where it could be deployed. Um, all kinds of learning content could be put in that kind of a thing. So yeah, anyway, this
Mm.
picture and this seeing this creation of this from an AI starts to make your imagination expand a little bit on the scope of what could be produced, I guess it seems. But also it's to your point about the photo and the proliferation of this media. For the first time, maybe I know a lot of people have thrown out warnings, but for the first time, I really started to internalize today, if you like, um, the potential for these things to really uh, kick back, you know, in ways that are challenging to people's mental health.
Can you expand on that? I did not really get it.
Which part? There was...
Kick
Mental
back?
health.
I just don't. I
Oh,
wasn't sure.
I mean, I just mean I didn't want. I felt like I'd gone on long enough, so I didn't want to launch into detail on the next thing. But I was getting at this idea that just, this Taylor Swift thing, right? So things like that, things that are like abusive uses of AI generativity to like sort of, you know, uh, mess with people's heads.
I'm all over that. Just want like
Yeah.
that's why I didn't want you to stop. Just when you got interesting.
At scale, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I it's sort of my thesis, like my running thesis, that we're gonna see all new kinds of like manipulation and fuckery with its generative AI. And it's hard to even like anticipate exactly what that's going to be or how it will influence people, because just like we have whole new like weird abuses from like the first generation of you know images and stuff like that, and like revenge porn, like who I didn't see that one coming, like just I don't know, it's super interesting though.
What are you talking about? It feels like I've been sleeping under a rock. Can someone give me a crash course on Taylor Swift? I am out of that completely.
Just imagine that someone hates Tiberius and wants to ruin Tiberius and just spams the entire web with extremely realistic footage of Tiberius doing all kinds of goofy, heinous, nasty, whatever things, or things that Tiberius would never do, but makes convincing visual arguments for the fact that Tiberius is this terrible guy. That's what we're talking.
So
And
somebody's getting
Tiberius as
at
a
her.
result, is disenfranchised somehow, or causes, suffers in some significant ways. That's what we're talking about.
But
Because
what?
of this AI generated stuff that at the press of a button was so readily and easily produced. Kind of
So
like the
eventually,
equivalent of, sorry, I was just going to say there's a parallel in the proliferation of script kiddie type resources on the dark web, where like anyone with like absolutely no technical training or knowledge can acquire tooling that
no,
permits them to perpetrate pretty
well,
sophisticated
this is
attacks.
history repeating itself, because I once shared a video with you guys about this guy that I forgot his name. He was presented as the most dangerous uh, philosopher on the internet, a very young guy, and he was telling the story. There is some grinching some noise in the back. I don't know. It's, Yeah. So the invention of this guy was analyzing blackmailing as the glue of the global power structure, and he went back to the invention of the photography and how blackmailing exploded as a mechanism to gain loyalty and build networks of influence. So after the Second World War in Germany, they miniaturized cameras, the Germans, and that allowed people to take pictures cheaply, and they installed it in brothels in this town in Germany that became the capital of strippers and sex, and a lot of rich people from all over Europe. They were going to the city. It became just this sex tourism right after the World War, and this is where they were like hiding cameras and taking compromising pictures. So the democratization of taking pictures led to something negative in society. So now the democratization of content produced by AI, it's kind of weaponized in a similar fashion. So once you have some technology that allows you to do harm on a massive scale, it seems like people find that use and exploit it right away. Hello?
Hi.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I just wanted to add that in. I see the same dynamic.
Yeah.
Is Vinny still around? He was presenting after him. Oh, I don't.
Yeah. Where's everyone?
They dropped out. Oh,
yeah, I'm here.
yes, I can see. Oh, I can
I'm
see the
sharing
picture.
some
Okay.
photos. This is a
Yeah,
photo
yeah.
of Mohit.
Hey,
This is the
slideshow, right on.
This is downtown
Wow.
Mohit. Downtown Mohitches. It's the downtown of Mohitches is literally in the between huge mountains. You can see one of them right there, right? And there's a huge river that cuts it. I'm going to show the river for you guys.
Tim, this is from Vinny's trip. You weren't here probably when he was talking about it.
I went to see Danilo.
Southern Brazil.
Yeah, southern Brazil. Exactly where Danilo is living, in Mauritius. It's a very wilderness place. Like you feel that you're living with the forest, right? At all times. Because the climate is so present, the mountains, the forests, the wilderness of you see animals in the streets, it's impressive. It's really impressive. And it reminds me of when I was living literally in the forest during some years of my life. So it's a very crude, a very intense experience. For you guys to take, just for you guys to understand how the mosquitoes almost bite me in all my body. Like I'm bited from the feet to the head, like hundreds and hundreds of bites
Oh
of
my God,
mosquitoes.
this must be Bill Gates mosquitoes.
Yeah, maybe. So here you go. You see. This is very interesting. This mountain here. This is the first. This is the first peak in Brazil that was being explored by people that was for climbers. The first peak in Brazil that started the movement of mountain climbers in Brazil was this peak here. yeah, there's so much. I'm going to share. There's so much things that it's going to be impossible for me to do one by one here. I'm just selecting some of them to show you guys. So the car here, I just want to share this photo because I didn't comment. Do you see here?
Yeah.
This is where Danilo Tim is living. The house is exactly here. You see, the house is here. This is the where this is, and this is this is the last wilderness of the place. Like it's the more urban thing that you have in Morretes, besides the downtown. Right? So here you go. You can feel that you're in the forest all times. It's impressive. Oh, this, by the way, this is Vanya's car, right? It's a 4x4.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. What's the elevation? How high up the hillsides is
Yeah,
it?
we were about 1,120 meters above sea level.
Wow.
I'm so interested in what he's doing with to a communication with animals, which I'm also super interested in. I'm wondering if there's like some kind of connection because I'm also, I'm doing all this work in like dominance and how to communicate with someone when they're like they feel that they're superior and dominant. And so it's sort of like how humans feel about animals, like, oh my God, you're like, our intelligence is so much better than yours. We're so much smarter than you, and we should be able to take up so much space because we're just like superior beings. And like just trying to I don't know, it'd be so super interesting to find out because it seems like animals are just like much more intelligent that we give them credit for.
Yeah. Me and Tim, we can speak loads of that because even Tim nowadays more Tim than me because I'm so involved by RWI that I've been able to, to accompany Danilo into his explorations through communication, interspecies communications and relationship. I think that Tim can share a little bit more than me, but he's developing haptics for dogs, for instance, and for plants. He's always done some things for communication with plants, right? And now it's going to have an interactive installation, a totem in Morretes, in a waterfall, in the famous waterfall that's near his house, where he's going to input all the data that he collected from the river, the sacred river that cuts the sea, right? So people can talk to the river, right? And the river can talk back, like something like that. He's all in this project now, by the way. But not only this photo here, we took it crossing the wilderness of the forest at night with the moon. You see, and yeah, do you see how it's shining? It's impressively shining, and because we're so high up, right? It's impressively shining, and
That looks like a painting. That looks like a
but it's not. It's a photo, man. I
yeah.
took it
Wow.
within the forest. We were walking through the forest only with the light of the moon, right? And all sorts of animals were around us, and I encourage people to try to accustomate your eyes to the moonlight, right? And this was amazing. I tried to capture a little bit. So here you go. But Tim, if you want to share a little bit about your impressions of this interspecies cluster that Danilo is deep diving, feel free, man. It's going to be nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wow, he's got a few threads going, right? His first one, the earliest one I remember was the one with the haptic device on his arm that takes actuates vibrations on his forearm or hand, I guess, that corresponds with signals from sensors on either plants or fungi, or now connecting with the dog that has a head-mounted kind of neuro detectors on his head, because he's hooked up with a fellow that's what he researches, because he's researching the possibility of having uh, another channel or medium of connection or communication or signaling from a canine to a human, where that canine perhaps might be detecting substances or detecting disease, and so that the human is able to like receive the signal that the dog has made a detection, from a distance perhaps, or maybe there's like 10 dogs that one person is able to receive signals from. So sort of just creating this kind of man canine team that is augmented by this haptics interface, is sort of seems to be a direction right now. But he's also taken it more like figuratively into trying to create installations that engages people just to think about these things and discuss things, and also maybe to create technological resources that could be components of larger ecosystems of intelligent media, like AI generated stuff. So he's created, as Vinicius mentioned, he had from this project at Zuzulu, they gave voice through like a large language model to a river in Montenegro. And then he alliterated, I guess, that kind of a project into a river in Brazil, which Vinicius might know the name of. So something. Maybe I have the wrong.
Yeah, the name of the river is Sacred River.
Okay. So they're doing an installation with that voice on that, and through this Sympoiesis collaboration with a person named Ingvild, they've developed this guide for creating non-human or more than human avatars using AIs and large language models, or just creating them as a character in a like a, what do they call it, non-playing character, or non-player character, and maybe in games, for instance, or maybe
NPCs, non-player character. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and we're talking about now how, to the point that we're kind of coming full circle with that media we just talked about, sort of gamifying the superfluous man into greens for good interactive learning, and Lauren's concerns and things around abusive use of AI. It kind of comes full circle, because part of that guide of creating these non-human and more than human characters was also some extensions we talked about in the direction of like data science, to make sure that any facts or content or things they might say, if they're given voice, are, among all the other things this guide talks about, are somehow veridical or grounded in some sort of provenance of trusted data, information, sourcing of some kind, the same way that people like to inspect open source code and have some kind of confidence in inspectability and observability of what it's made of, right? So so in a way, this guide that Danilo and Ingvild have started to develop becomes a mechanism, a countervailing, a mechanism of pushing back against, or protecting against, or at least trying to channel into non-harmful kind of content, Lauren, I think. So it's kind of maybe even a tool for.
Doesn't it feel like we're almost going in some sort of weird, like, I don't know, it almost feels like the Dark Ages or something, except totally different at the same time, because it's like you're going into a place where you just don't know who to trust, and there's like no source of good information. And like all the newspapers are now closing, and the investigative journalists are being fired, and you don't know if anything is real and fake. And so I think it like, there's like an explosion of content, and at the same time it's like, I don't know, maybe that's gonna like crystallize into like a hugely set centralized force again of like who can verify the truth.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And on the other hand, there's probably going to be more and more people investing in building that trust rigging, let's put it that way, that scaffolding of trusted information to try to create those little sort of backbones of consensus or whatever it is that's grounding some kind of legitimacy of content. So I think there's people rapidly trying to address the issue you're talking about by building things like that so that things can be hung on that. But on the other hand, I think on the other side of it, I think there's maybe some degree of healthy maturation of some kind or evolution of sort of human self-perception around production of speech and media, where in a way a healthy decentering can occur, so that it's like, yeah, we can generate a lot of crap, like, let's face it. So maybe not take it so seriously when it is like, you know what I mean, in your one's self, if one can sort of help people to get a bit of a thicker skin around if there is going to be a proliferation of garbagey content that is AI generated, maybe there becomes a bit of a, I don't know there's a word for what I'm trying to say, but like not taking yourself so seriously is sort of this direction of what I'm getting at. Um, Not a cynicism, but irony might be the word from the past recent times, ability to have some critical distance to the garbage that an AI might produce as a culture, develop that capacity might happen too.
This it's interesting how everything connects. We recently had a discussion at the Sensorica Lab about AI and connection to peer-to-peer. So the question was, is the development of AI creating an environment that is favorable to peer-to-peer dynamics or goes against peer-to-peer dynamics? So there was like pros and cons. And one guy named Hugo, actually he's a Brazilian, Vinny. You may want to get in touch and see what this guy's up to. But the idea here was that peer-to-peer at its core has its own institution of truth, so to speak, which doesn't mean a centralized body to advocate, or not to advocate, but to separate fact from non-fact. But it's a mechanism, right? It's a distributed mechanism to establish the how do you say, the validity of some data or information at its core. It has it at its core, and so you can, if you look through the history of society, what he says is that at some point was the church that was the mechanism of truth in society, right? So the Bible, we take it literally, is true. So everything that happens, we go back to the Bible and verify and correlate to see if it goes in the same direction, if it matches, if there's a correlation, and then we say that that should be valid. Then we created science, right? With the scientific method. Any theory should be not verifiable. Every theory should be constructed in a way that somebody can invalidate it later, and every experiment should be described so that people can reproduce it. And that is a sort of a mechanism of establishing truth. So the scientific institution became the locus of truth formation. And then we had the media with the profession of journalists and their own ethics, right? So verify your sources, verify the information, and once it gets published, we take it as cash, right? So every step of the way, these institutions, as they centralized, they were corrupted. Okay, and what he says is that peer-to-peer proposes its own methods. Okay, so there is an embodiment in the blockchain. Okay, verify, don't trust, right? So you can say that there is a mechanism of correlation, like in the Bitcoin network, the nodes verify a transaction, and then whatever gets published, okay, has a very high probability of being an accurate event. So there was a transfer of tokens from my wallet to, I don't know, Lauren's wallet, and once it gets published in the blockchain, that is verified. So everybody agrees, with high confidence that this happened, and then it becomes immutable, right? So it stays as an event that has passed. But that embodiment is very narrow, okay? But peer-to-peer as a whole, as a culture, generalizes that. Okay, so go back to science a little bit. Peer review, right? Peer review. It's a way for scientists to validate one scientist's claims, and then once it gets published, once it gets public and published, it's kind of taken as valid scientific information. So when you look at the peer-to-peer as a whole, there is this idea of cross-correlation among random peers, some sort of intersubjectivity there as a mechanism as well. So the culture of peer-to-peer has its own mechanism for validating information. Okay, so now in the world with AI, what do we do? Okay, so in the world of platforms, what do we do? Well, they create a fact-checking organizations, right? That's the industrial quality control mechanism. Okay, so you have a platform producing content, and you have a department of quality control that could be easily compromised. Okay, so that response to truth, the platform waits, it's not a proper one. It's not peer-to-peer. It doesn't work. It can be easily corrupted. It's the institutional industrial way sort of to deal with the problem of misinformation, and it gets corrupted and turned back against the people to manipulate. And with AI, like you say, it's this explosion of content, and it can be weaponized. So probably, if we look for an answer to this kind of craziness, like Lawrence was saying, is like we're like in a dark age. You don't know. We've lost the ability to say what's real and what's not. Okay, so what do we do? Well, maybe we should look into peer-to-peer and look at how these mechanisms for establishing truth and validating information operate at the very deep and abstract level at the same time, and build on top of that to say that there's a response from the peer-to-peer culture. Okay, the response to that is not institutional. Let's not create another super AI that is controlled by the government to check all the other AIs, the AI of AIs, whatever, the fact checkers. But maybe that should come from the peer-to-peer culture through some sort of cross correlation and intersubjectivity. Even though this is helped by AI and some other technologies, the ultimate substrate, you know, it's like human correlation, right? Human to human correlation into subjectivity. So there's something to build on that, probably. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So truth stays human, remains human, and is rooted into human as individuals, and not on some other layer that is created on top of humans. You know.
Very interesting to me. But you see, let me try to synthesize a little bit what you just said through my perspective, my complexity doing perspective, right? For me, AI is just a fraction of an instance of the type of intelligences that surrounds us, that we are embedded with, right? Our intelligence did not did not it, did not came out on its own. Is a derivative of all sorts of intelligence when we look around all sorts of species through eons, right? So we already have this capability to do distributed cognition, as you guys knows, and that's a natural thing that we have in us. Like our brains are suited to adapt. Our brains are suited to make relevance realization moment by moment, to focus energy, but to interact in a complex ways with our senses, with the environment, right? So this is a type of intelligence. It's not a rational intelligence, but it's a type of intelligence, and it drives us so much as the so-called rational intelligence, right? So for me, peer-to-peer is not only related to our species. Peer-to-peer for me is everything about life itself, right? Everything about life is peer-to-peer, is interactive, is emergent, is chaotic, is chaotic, right? So is interdependent. There's always a tension of interdependency between us, our species within us, and all species around us, all life around us. And this tension creates life, right? And that's the type of analog peer-to-peer, culturally speaking, that I've been related to. I've been doing all this, you know, explorations, and even living my life through it, right? So when I go to all these places, I go through the flow, you know, through the peer-to-peer flow within the openness in the spaces that people are attracted to explore with me, right? So in that sense, I try to embed, I try to embed this complexity that surrounds us, that we create complexities, but the complexity that surrounds us as a way of living. That's something that I want to, you know, to control, to plan, to organize, to make it happen for me or for my project and things like that. And so I'm just saying this to see that for me, in this sense, AI is just as powerful as it can turn out to be in the urban space, the Web2 urban space that we live in, right? Lauren had to get out, no problem. I still understand that it's just a reflection of our capability. It's not the whole thing. It's not, you see, it's parts. It is one type of intelligence that doesn't have the complexity, the embedded years, millions of years, or billions of years of intelligent life, let's put it this way, embedded within. So yeah, it took for our intelligence, right, embedded within other intelligence, billions of years for us to generate this type of intelligence, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
What I'm trying to say that is that it's not something born out of nothing has a direct relationship with our aspirations as a species. Let's put it this way. Our curiosity, our cybernetic capability to extend our bodies, right? Internet is extension, a cybernetic extension of our bodies, right? So it's part of our type of intelligence, but it's part of, is not another thing, you know? And the good thing is that AI is, for good or for worse, is being crafted or being nurtured in some sense in a very peer-to-peer way. In some sense, in the sense that people are, culturally appropriating the tooling around AI to co-create with this type of intelligence that we created something new. But that said, that doesn't mean that everybody has exactly the same thing, awareness that I have, that you have, TV, and Tim has, or Laurie has, right? People just get fascinated by it, And of course, if OpenAI is liberating the tools and the access to this type of intelligence, right? In the wilderness of Web 2 that has all this, algorithmic reality that drives our daily lives, right? Drives us in a sense that we're always, looking at the small screens. We're always, make not there is puppeteering us around, the algorithm puppeteer us around. If you're really in social media or really in Web 2, you don't, some people feel, most others don't feel that they're being puppeteered around, right? But what I'm saying is that for good or for worse, it's a kind of a way to generate new forms of awareness, new types of awareness, new forms of awareness around this type of intelligence that our species is creating, right?
And to add
yeah.
on top of that, Vinny, because what I presented, you made me just realize that what I presented with the peer-to-peer and AI, it's an anthropocentric view. It's humans, cross-correlation of humans' perception and human intersubjectivity, and the AI is this dragnet that just collects the collective intelligence and then synthesizes it, right? But then if we go back to Daniel Lu and his project, it's also, what is the dog saying? What is the dog saying? So this is what humans are saying and seeing and perceiving. What is the dog saying? Because the dog has a brain, has a neural network, he solves world problems, and there may be some questions about some realities that the dogs are maybe better positioned to provide some answers that have practical interest, right? So this interspecies thing is to say, well, it's not just humans connected to reality. If we want to reason about reality and we only stop to the human perception, then we have only a narrow view of reality, right? But by integrating, let's say, the dogs, understanding how they process reality, integrating their worldview, I think we're extending and putting that into the same AI dragnet, and mixing it with the human perception. Now you have a collective intelligence that goes beyond the human perception. You see what I'm saying? And then you can have cross-correlation, not just of humans, but also of other neural networks, biological neural networks that make sense of reality in their own way.
Yeah. Good points you have there.
So it's peer-to-peer extended to other species too, that do have something to say about reality. Hey, they're able to live on their own without human intervention. You know, they're solving problems about the world. You know, they're controlling their environment, like beavers. You know, they control the level of the lakes, and you know, so.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But we needed to be in this collapse mode, TB. We needed to be in this complex collapse mode that we find ourselves, you know, in civilizational scale, you know, with all this emergence of climates and killing of species, and you know, all this craziness of Web 2 as already is, and with this type of applications of AI, for us to generate awareness, this, you know, this type of awareness, this type of talk and perspective that we're talking here about, right? And this is interesting what you just said, because I've been talking about this for ages. And I feel like the guy that nobody understands, like, yeah, what I'm saying that it's very difficult it shouldn't be, right? If you pick it, if you talk, if you live and talk with indigenous people, as I did in Brazil and other places for the years, you feel that they still have a connection. By the way, have a profound connection. I just let me show you guys this. There was an indigenous guy that lives nearby the Nilu, right? And he do this type of art here that represents his understanding and his relationship with other species. And you see these guys here? It's a woodpecker. Look at it. This is exactly the type of woodpecker that he lives his childhood. You see? This is carved on wood, right? Wow. Look at the work. He doesn't do this by looking at the photo. He does it by memory. Like he lives so much with these woodpeckers in his forest that he was able to do this type of work. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Nice. Wow. What kind of wood? What's the name of the wood?
Yeah, he works with all sorts of woods, and he doesn't do it for grant. Like he doesn't do it only in industrial. He doesn't do it in industrial scale. He does it as in the need he has, you know, to pay his bills or things like that. But he does some rites of passage to cut the trees. You know, he has a profound respect with the trees, and he doesn't cut any tree. He cuts the tree that he senses and feels that the tree itself already gives his life. Like he works with woods of trees that are already dying, or trees that are infested somehow with parasites or something. He does something that is not, you know.
He's reclaiming the wood. Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive. So you and the way that he treats the wood itself from the tree, it's very different from, you know, a professional that works in you know, in a wood house and has some, you know, products to make. It's all very automatic, very industrial. He's an artist. So to sculpt those birds, those woodpeckers, that was almost 3 months of work, right? So it's nothing like he doesn't put it in a machine and no, nothing like that. He does it by his hands, and he lives the thing. So he cherishes, and in the sense that this is something that is getting out of me, my experience with the wilderness, with all sorts of species, and this species in particular, the woodpeckers that I just showed you guys. So this was a very, very one of the most profound moments that I had with Vanya when we were there in Morretes, talking to this guy, right? Interacting with him. He is extremely peer-to-peer to me. Like he's peer-to-peer in his core. He's always talking with people. He always talking with other species. He always is being informed by the river, informed by the birds, informed by the insects. He knows when it's going to rain, it's not going to rain. He feels when it's changing. And he's okay with all of this. It's not like it's sun now and now it's raining and he knows it. That's okay, no problem. It's part of this interactive dynamics and process is. So he is the complexity doing dynamics that I talk about in the essence, and it's beautiful to see that we still have these type of human beings living, right? Living around us.
You make me want to go outside. Makes me want to get outside.
But you see, these humans are at the edge of the humanity as a network that have developed some sensibilities, and they translate some of the information from the non-human realm into the human realm, because they will put it into language, they will put it into cultural artifacts, and this is a sort of this sensor edge of humanity, right? Through these sensibilities, importing these wisdoms. And this is probably what we did with the indigenous population, when we started to understand that we're screwing up the world. We went back to these tribes that are super connected to the physical reality more than us living in this synthetic world, right? And we started to interrogate them, like, how would you do that? How do you see this? And these are also sensors, right, at the periphery of humanity as a living system. You know what I'm saying? I see it in that way. And what Daniel Liu is doing is essentially democratizing that sensibility in some way.
Yeah.
It's allowing everybody to kind of interrogate other living systems.
Yeah, you're right on. I totally agree with you. It's a very impressive work that he's doing, and and he's doing something with such a spirit of, he's not doing something to teach others or to be a reference or to become a guru or nothing like that. He's doing because he feels that this is a very important thing that we lost it in the urban spaces, in this extreme industrialized cities, and this very artificial ambience that we live in. And
it's good. It's a good thing. What?
Were you talking? Were you referring to Danilo when you said he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Danilo. Oh, Lauren didn't see the woodpeckers, right? Lauren, you didn't see.
I didn't. No, I was gone for a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to show you the woodpeckers of a guy here, a guy that I got to know, that is Danilo's friend, that lives besides him, is his neighbor, right? And he does this type of work here. And take a look, woodpeckers, Lauren, from the Atlantic forest, that he knows by memory. He doesn't have a photo by it. He knows it because his childhood was lived around these birds, this type of birds. See? Exactly. And this is the wood that was dying in the forest. So he made a rite of passage for this wood. This is wood too, of course, the woodpeckers. And he did. So this type of painting here is dyed, is not a industrial painting. He makes this painting with urucum. Another. It's impressive work. It's You have very little industrial thing. The only thing here to be in Laudenton that is industrialized is this thing here that he puts, right? Yeah, this is the only thing, because the rest
Beautiful.
is nature, done by nature. So that's basically it. And we were talking about this, and TB made a very good remark of how this type of human beings, they remind us how we are complex, right? How our ancestors had a direct relationship with the complexity of life, and in a very peer-to-peer way. So we were talking about that. No bullshit there.
Well, yes, because these tribes, they look at the animals to predict the weather. They look at the animals to find food, because they know that these animals are, they're also making sense of their own environment, and they're sensible to some things that we're not. So there is this cross interspecies, this interspecies communication, right? This cross species communication, but we've lost that, right? We totally lost that, and yeah, when I first heard about Danielu's project, I found it like technologically interesting, but I thought that I didn't see the value. But now I see that there's a huge value to what he's doing. I'm glad that he's a stubborn guy, and it just kept going, because now I can see the ramifications of this kind of work.
Yeah, he actually mapped it out. Did you see, TB? I was showing the mapping in Kumu of the work. Did you guys see when I was sharing?
Yeah, I saw some network representation.
Yeah. So guys, we're already around the clock here, and I just want to make two observations before we depart. We wrap up. Is that there's a very interesting, important conversations that Lauren had with Stefan when it comes to the type of work that we want to do this year, 2024, for reimagining wealth dynamics initiative, right? And Lauren, would you like to, if you want, if you can, summarize a little bit the conversation that you have with Stefan when it comes to the platform that he is actually using for his labs, for Fusion Labs, and what type of work that we can do there, right? And from there, part and do other things. So feel free to summarize for us, please.
Yeah, actually, instead of summarizing, can I just operationalize what we did?
Mm-hmm.
You remember when I was talking about the conversational menu idea, where I was trying to design this conversational menu to basically allow us to, deliver or allow us to form ourselves in ways that would be helpful to anyone who comes to our sessions. And so we one of the formations was like one of the things on the conversational menu was like, I have something to say and I need your help for me to say this in a way that someone can hear it, which also aligns with our the discussion of today with like speaking with animals or something like that. It's like you're trying to communicate with someone who's on a different wavelength. So I'd like to ask your help for me to communicate something to a friend of mine. Would you be willing to do that?
Of course I would.
Okay. So
yes, of course.
This is a guy that I'm dealing with, and he reached out to me months and months ago with a text that said, I really need your help. And so I called him and we talked for a couple hours, and we didn't talk about like anything deep or anything like that. Just, had a nice conversation. But then just like a week or two ago, he comes to me, and it was sort of like in as a complaint. He was like, oh, I think that, I told you how much I needed you, and I'm disappointed that you haven't been checking up on me every couple weeks. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't actually know what kind of problem that you had, or that it was even related to like an emotional problem. And so I just kind of felt like the conversation, like I was feeling he was trying to connect with me, but like he was trying to have an emotional connection with me, but the things that he was saying were making my tummy feel yucky. And I'm trying to make it a habit of not connecting to people like when my tummy feels yucky, to actually take that seriously and not like I apologized right away, but I didn't actually feel very sorry. And it's because of the way that he was trying to make that connection. And I felt like he wants me to do his emotional labor. And when I say emotional labor, it's not like my girlfriends, when my girlfriends are like, oh, I have a problem and I'm just feeling sad about something. Can I talk about it with you? Or they say, oh, I don't know how, I'm like feeling some big emotions. Can I just like, run through it with you? And it's more like I'm feeling big feelings, but I don't want to be vulnerable or actually talk about my feelings, or ask you to actually like to tell you how I need help, but I just want to like dump shit on you and have you like make me feel better and like read my mind and know what's wrong and like solve my problems without me having to say what they are. So that's what I'm saying. Can you help me formulate these ideas in a way that a guy could hear?
Yeah, of course, Lauren. I think that
First of
even
all, is it understandable what I'm saying? Do you understand like
yeah, I understand. Yeah, you see, there's some things there. Let me just see if I first have I got the picture, the context that you just shared with us, and it's going to be nice to hear Chibi and Tim too. Um, so this guy that you know about him, he knows about you, right?
Yeah, so we have
And
an intellectual relationship. Like he's my thinking buddy, but every time it gets emotional, it's like I don't know if you've seen that movie Dune or read the book, but there's this thing called the Gum Jabbar, and it's this thing that the protagonist puts his hand in, and it's like torture, and it like starts to make his hand tingle, and then it's like torture. So that's what it feels like every time there's like some emotional content. I'm like, oh my God, how can I get myself out of here? But it's like he wants me to be his emotional service worker, where it's like his feelings are my responsibility, and that doesn't happen when someone has like emotional intelligence. It's not like I'm just helping them work through the problem. It's like the emotions are directed at me, and it's like my fault if he doesn't feel good.
yeah, and he's not aware. He's not aware how this takes a toll on you, right? He's not aware of that, right?
Right. So it's like when he's trying to connect with me in this way, I understand why he wants to connect, but the way he's connecting, it's almost like you're stealing your neighbor's electricity by siphoning it off instead of like wanting to pay for it. And you pay for it by your own vulnerability, saying like, oh, I have a need. Can you meet my need?
he doesn't want to say that he has a need or like what it is. And so he insisted that he told me how much he needed me and what he needed me for. But that's all he said. He said, he said, I have a need for you, but he doesn't say what his need is or what I should do.
He's parasiting you, right? It's like a parasite.
That's what my tummy said. My tummy was like, oh no, it doesn't feel good.
Wow, there's loads of people that lives that way, Laurin. And the way to deal with it is not to be available. Like literally, I'm not available today, and you can weaken a little bit the connection, you know. And when you weaken the connection, not being available, right? Normally, well, I'm a guy, right? I'm not a woman like you, but normally it works in a sense that it feels that you know, you can the guy has to rephrase, the other person has to rephrase the framing of the connection in order to have the proximity again, you know. So you open some space, to some discovery space between you and this person, in order for her to take to generate awareness around what is happening, right? So that works for me, doesn't mean that was going to work for you. But what I'm saying is that when you and you know me, I'm not the type of guy that is closed source, right? I'm open to everybody, but I feel when somebody is parasiting myself, like you're feeling now, is parasiting my energy, right? It's siphoning out my energy because of it's emotional vulnerability. So, and when that happens, I just take a step back, right? I take a step back. I'm not available as I used to be, and that type of movement normally generates or the siphoning, like a connection goes out because he needs it 24/7, like, or she needs it 24/7, or generates a awareness discovery space to redefine the framing of the connection, you know. So you have the
So this isn't,
opportunity
let me just specify. So this isn't someone who's like on me 24/7. This isn't that kind of relationship. It's more like I will like if I expose any kind of vulnerability, any at all, and I don't get exactly what I want, I'll just run away and not like continue this relationship. So it's not like I expect you to call me every day. It's not like that thing, but it's more just like if I reach out a little teeny bit and if I don't receive like all the services that I want, then it means that no one's ever going to be there for me and I can't be vulnerable because it was a disaster. It's like, dude, you never were vulnerable.
Have you tried to do the reverse with him?
What, like what?
You show your vulnerability to him and see how he reacts to it, not the other way around. Have you tried to experience this?
Yeah, I mean, not with this particular incident.
Yeah, because you see, that would be something unexpected from him. It's like he wouldn't expect something coming from you because he sees you as this type of people that has the emotional hardness or the capability to understand human complexity or whatever, and you actually have. You are very talented this way. You are very aware of that, and maybe if you reverse engineer the dynamics, maybe this can come as a shock for him. Like,
Okay.
a shock treatment. Like, wait a minute, what is happening here? Wait
So
a
this
minute.
is another element of how I feel. Like, I feel like he's trying to connect, but he's not actually trying to connect with me. He's trying to connect to his fantasy person who's living in my body, who isn't actually me, who would anticipate all of his needs and be able to soothe him. I'm like, I'm clearly not your, like fantasy ideal woman. I'm just me. And I don't like, it's not flattering.
Do you think he has a hard on in this type of character, that this persona that he sees in you?
I don't know. It's just, how someone can, when they're trying to connect with you, but they have an idealized version of you that they're trying to connect to, so
Yeah.
that when you don't do what their fantasy does in their mind, there's like a huge disappointment between their fantasy and your reality.
Yeah, let's hear TB and Tim. I think that they certainly have some fresh.
I just want to say a quick little thing. Just yeah, I'd first of all, yeah, I put a little thing in the text there about good idea about the listening to your gut. That's a good idea. That's always sometimes tricky to do, but a good thing to learn. But Vinicius's suggestion, I just kind of throw a little caution in there about the mirroring reversal, but maybe if you thought about it, maybe there would be a way to apply that kind of an idea, but very much in the context that you just brought up, in the context of the immediate conversation. Maybe the vulnerability, the furthest I would go in that suggestion is to stay focused on the context and maybe speak to a vulnerability of exactly what you're saying right now about, directly, like, this is how I feel about when you dump this on me. I'm not sure I can really handle that responsibility. So, I don't feel that that's something like speaking to it as a vulnerability, as a limitation, as a constraint, as a natural, normal thing to express that, hey, like you just said, I'm not a bottomless pit of emotional resource for you to draw upon as and when you seem to deem it meeting with your expectations undiscussed or negotiated with me, right? Like that puts you in a, there's a way to maybe put it in terms that Vinicius suggested, but in general, I wouldn't necessarily play a game with the vulnerability.
TB?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not good at that.
I also threw a Star Trek episode in there. If he's a Star Trek fan, you're done. You don't even need to say a word. Just send him that link.
I know, Katie, but I want to hear from you, because that's like the exact reason that I'd like to hear from you.
From me, well, I don't know. I'm probably not good to deal with this topic, the psychology and stuff.
No, you don't have to know any psychology. All you have to know, and this is what I want you to offer me, is just like, I've told you what I want to say. What I need you to tell me is, from your perspective, how could I phrase this in a way that he could hear what I'm saying?
So the way I see the situation is that is probably either emotionally immature, or maybe he cannot speak about his vulnerabilities, and that's probably related to his own emotional state, something that he cannot open about because it cannot bear it. I guess Tim's approach is based on being transparent and and we analyzing the roles in this relationship to say, well, that's not something that I can sign up for. It's like open communication. But it's kind of tricky because people have needs, and this is like we're like into like irrational territory there, you know.
Okay, can I just say what I have to say, and you can say whether it is a wise thing to say or good or not. This is what I'm thinking, that like I totally acknowledge the legitimacy of your wanting to connect with me, and I want to connect with you too. But the strategy that you use to connect with me doesn't make me feel very good. So I need you to use another strategy. And if you use another strategy, then I'd be happy to hear what you have to say, and it will make it much easier for me to connect, I guess. Is that something that he could hear or understand?
I don't know. But this is similar to, yeah.
Put yourself in his shoes. Like you're a guy, and all this. Like she wants a feedback.
The male perspective.
A perspective from a guy. Like,
yeah.
So to try to put yourself in his shoes, in the way that she describes it. I think that what Laura is trying to get out of us here.
Yes, you don't have to say, you don't have to tell me like what to say. I'm just saying, if I say that, would you think that it will be, you can hear that? Because I'm trying to say it in such a way that doesn't raise any like shame flags. But I also want to be clear about that the strategy made me feel yucky.
Yeah, if I just imagine myself in that situation, I'm exploring like what kind of reactions I may get. So that's from my personal point of view. I may understand it. I may feel it as a rejection. Yeah, so it could go both ways.
Well, it is definitely a rejection, but what I'm trying to communicate, it's not a rejection of his essential self, but the rejection of the strategy that he chose to use.
But he may be not aware of that strategy, right, Laurie? He may be not aware.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're in irrational territories, because we have like emotional needs, and sometimes we're not aware. So it happens to me sometimes that you know, I'm reacting. I have my own issues. Okay, I have my own issues. So I went through some trauma when I was younger. I always had the impression that my parents were planning to get rid of me for some reason, you know, because they were like a bit absent, working too much. We were staying home a lot as kids. Remember me and my sister looking through the window. Is mom and dad gonna come home tonight? You know, stuff like that. So that reflects on my relationships, you know, like fear of abandonment and stuff like that. And it gets expressed in very subtle ways. I'm kind of aware about it, but if you ask me, you know, these are like deep emotional legacy stuff that surface in ways that you may not even realize, and it's totally irrational, you know. So in my case, in these situations, that would feel like a rejection. You know, it would feel like a rejection. So maybe, I don't know. I think I don't know if you can speak to, because you don't know, he didn't open up, so you don't know, you have no clue why he takes this kind of communication ways, means, you know. So maybe maybe he wants to talk about some project, but just it comes out of him in that way, like a frustration or something. You know what I'm saying? Like a so, but it's hurting you. So yeah. So I would, you know what? I would take the empathic way, and also reflect some on you and play on this person's sensibility to others. So if he's a good person, he may not want to hurt you or anything like that. So so maybe by by saying I don't feel comfortable, makes me so that may not feel as a rejection because you put yourself first, right? So in my case, that would be more understandable, you know. And so, oh my God, okay, I didn't know I'm bothering this person, so I'm not a guy that likes to torture others. So that that would make me reflect on the dynamic of the discussion. Tim was expressing almost the same thing, but he's like too rational. So I don't know if you want to take that rational road or the emotional road.
So, okay, so he is an engineer and like a programmer.
Just send the Star Trek link. We're done. Just send the Star Trek link. I don't know why we're complicated.
I will check that out. I haven't had the time to do it while we've been talking. Maybe that will clear everything up.
Sarek is a good one for you. Just attack her.
Paste. Here, I'm trying to get the link again.
I'm poking fun at engineers, a little selfie-facing humor there too. That's
okay.
This link, Star Trek.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to find that link.
Oh,
again. I tried to copy it
back to you, but hey, Tiberius, I just want to say, my little offering there was as much in reaction to continuing the direction that Vinicius was going in terms of Lauren turning around and mirroring some kind of vulnerability. I felt that to open end that would be possibly a perilous move, and so I was just kind of trying to suggest a containment of that vulnerability expression to the actual immediate context. That's all. I wasn't open-ended, kind of trying to come up with some. You took a bigger, more ambitious challenge there. I didn't even aspire to answering the full question. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
So what are you saying with this link, with this Star Trek link? I'm not getting it.
Oh yeah. I was just, oh, nice kitty cat. I was just going to say, also introducing maybe the idea of like the idea of turn taking negotiation, however fundamentally you want to introduce it, but to begin to talk about things in a context of there is a pathway towards the way that things evolve towards certain degrees of dependency or intimacy. You know, that might be something to begin if you've skipped or anything like that.
Think of a metaphor that an engineer would be amenable to, saying you can't connect with me in a way that you're like stealing my energy, like you have to connect with me in a way.
Yeah. Okay, the best one is impedance mismatches. Impedance is a good one. People get that one right away. He probably uses.
What is that?
The idea of a mismatch in the kind of dynamics of transmission and signal conduction.
Okay.
That, Tiberius?
Yeah, it's an interface problem, right?
Yeah, it's like you have reactance and capacitance and resistance in a circuit, in a connection. Say I plug one wire into another wire, and suppose that behind the one wire is a certain circuit going out to a power plant maybe, and behind the other wire in my other hand is another circuit going out to some other kind of electrical configuration of different fundamental electrical components, right? These wires, because of what they're connected to and because of those circuits, they have a natural impedance that they present to something that connects to it. And when you connect two wires together, which have a mismatched impedance, the signal transmission between them is kind of bouncy, like signals will bounce back. Like I'll send a signal, but half of it will bounce back at me and create an echo and a reverberation or a ringing. It's not smooth. The metaphor with water would be the difference between turbulent flow and laminar flow, right?
Okay.
So when there's an impedance mismatch, stuff doesn't flow well. Meaning might bounce back, get distorted, get twisted, literally.
Yeah, an engineer would understand that for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
So
thank
you're
you so
just-
much. I will try that.
Yeah, not on the same channel kind of thing, but it's sort of, it doesn't say you're not on the same page or on the same channel. It says you're on the same channel. You're just kind of having a lossy communication where you're kind of talking past each other in some ways, would be the way people talk about it in speech. And that Sarek episode? Okay, so it's
Yeah.
when Spock's father comes aboard the ship to negotiate some kind of diplomatic truce. There's these warring planets or factions, right?
Uh-huh.
Because he's suffering from a condition that erodes his emotional control, which is so fundamental to Vulcans.
Okay.
You know, their maintaining of their own dignity and sort of mental stability is very dependent on this sort of suppression of this deep well of emotions that the Vulcan people have as a kind of a thing. And because of this condition he has, even though he's engaged, especially because he's engaged in this high pressure diplomatic negotiation process, it becomes the case that his handlers and his helpers and his attachés or what have you, as well as his relatives, his wife, and ultimately the captain of the Enterprise, Picard, end up having to absorb his emotional energy. It's people start having violent outbursts on the ship. People start having emotional difficulties and conflicts because he is broadcasting his feelings. He can't control Sarek as a Vulcan, sort of semi-telepathic in some ways, I guess, emotionally anyway. Somehow he's broadcasting his emotions to everyone in the ship, so everyone's suffering as they carry the burden of his depth of his own emotion.
Okay.
Yeah, and so ultimately he does this mind meld with Picard where he transfers his emotional turmoil into Picard, and that allows him the calm and equanimity to go and perform his duties at these diplomatic negotiations. But while he's there, Picard is like in turmoil, like in a nightmare scenario, suffering with Sarek's emotional burdens.
Okay. That sounds perfect. Thank you. I think that was actually very, very helpful. Yay, success. See?
See?
See, that was super, super helpful.
Yeah, Star Trek. I knew it would come in handy someday.
Great. Thank you.
Hey guys,
Thank you.
I actually have this exact passage that as a Star Trek fan that I am, that that Tim just talked about. I'm going to share with you guys to see. It's a little passage just to register the story. Let's see here together.
Are you going to say something? Okay.
Because I have to put my now is going to be possible for you guys to hear. So that's it, guys.
Thank you.
Did you see yourself there, Laurie?
Well, not quite, because it's not like I'm experiencing this kind of emotional stuff.
Yeah, but it's very illustrative.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you guys.
Okay, Laurie.
Okay, have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.
You too.
Yeah. Bye, guys. We have so much to evolve. You know, our dynamics here to this year. Let's see if next week we can make some new steps. Okay. There's so much we can do.
I just want to say before everybody goes, Michel Bounds is organizing something near Naples in Italy. I can send you a link, guys. You can also coordinate with Maison. Laurie, if you are in France, he's organizing this gathering. So you may want to join them for a few days.
Oh, I can. When is it for?
It's about peer-to-peer Web3, but Michel Bounds style. And it's like an hour away from Naples, with all these people from Web3. I don't know if I have the means to go, but I would like to see if we can get some crowdfunding going and if they can sponsor some people going there.
Right on.
Yeah, let's talk about that too.
Yeah, I'll share the links.
Yeah, cool.
Ciao.
Okay, bye, guys. Kisses.
Ciao.